Hey everyone, welcome to Giving Back AI Education. Today we're going to learn how to use Giving Back API concepts to understand programming fundamentals. And in this particular session, we will learn about the operators in Python using the API. Before we begin, if you are new here and if you have been following this curriculum, please make sure you are subscribing to the channel. That is possibly the best way to support our work. And without further ado, let's begin the session for today. I'm gonna go to my notebook that is already open from my last time. So how do we use the concepts of operators and exactly what they are, right? If you are seeing the idea of operator for the first time, what does this exactly mean? And you might have been using these for entire life without even knowing, they are called operators, right? So if you just remember from your, junior school, you might have done addition, subtraction, multiplication, divisions, and all those are called operators, right? Because operators do some operations on something. So let's say we have a number 3 and we have another number 5. So if you want to add this, you will use plus sign and that will give us 8. And congratulations, thank you very much for telling me this. 3 plus 5 is 8, right? That's what you might have been wondering now, because this is obvious, everyone knows that what we are learning here. The reason why I wanted to show you this is because Python is very interesting language, and most of the languages, they do it automatically. Sometimes you have to define the type, but here you can dynamically type 3 plus 5 and get the answer. It might have been, it looks simple, but it's not so simple. I'll tell you how. Okay, but not to scare you off too much, I will share one example more to show you what happens if we do, let's say, hello. Okay, let's say string data type. Let's write API and let's say API and programming. Okay, what happens if I do addition of API plus programming? And looking at this, it might be simpler, right? Okay, 3 plus 5 is 8. But how do we exactly add two words, English word? Look at this. It's API programming all together. So it's not exactly addition, is it? Right? So that's interesting. That's interesting observation. So what are the operators? What are they exactly doing? Are they adding? So it looks like they are not concatenating, right? So 3 plus 5 is not returned as 35. That means they are doing some operation here. But here, since these are not integer number, they are not returned as the addition. They are in fact concatenated. Concatenated means they are put together. Okay, so what if I add another space here? Let's say I want to add empty space and do plus sign. Okay, let's run it. Now they are coming separately. Look at that. That's the beauty. Okay, this is what I wanted to show you in more depth using the API. Okay, so let's delete this for now. So let's create another cell, and here we will learn about the arithmetic operator, the obvious ones that we already know. Okay, so what are arithmetic operators? It's just the same. If we do 3 plus 6, it will give us 9. That's arithmetic. But how do we use that in data frame? Okay, when we are dealing with data, a huge size of data. Let's say we have rows and columns. How do we use them? Okay, so let's say we want to create another variable called amount1, and we want to get this amount from, let's say, GBAPIDF that we have been using, and I want to access the amount column of this data frame, and this is giving us entire column, right? So let's run it, let's experiment, and if we print this amount 1, it will give us the entire column. That's not what I wanted. I only want the first one, first value. So to access the first value, what you can do is inside the square bracket, just specify 0 for location 0, right? You can see index here is 0. So you can say we can only get the first value from the column. Okay, that's pretty cool. So let's also create another amount from the same data frame and same column. I want to show you how to use the arithmetic operators. Okay, and these are building blocks of the more advanced programming concepts. So how do we get the sum of these two numbers? So now we know, okay, so amount 1 is the first value, amount 2 is the second value, but how do we get the sum of these two numbers? So let's say, let me create another variable called toSum equals, I want to add amount 1 plus amount 2. Okay, that's cool. So what does this value, this variable equal to? If we print this variable, do we get amount 1 and amount 2 just like this before? Or let me ask you this question, amount 1, um, amount 2, because remember when we were adding that API and programming two strings together, it was returning us API programming all together, right? But here we are also adding amount to 1 with another string value amount 2. Does it return us this or the value of toSum? That's a good question. Let's find out. So that will actually return the value. Look at that, that's interesting, because now we are able to retrieve the value held by these variables instead of what the string itself or what the variable itself, right? We're accessing the values. That's what the operation doing here, the operator plus sign doing. Similarly, what if we want to find the differences? Let's say 2diff equals, let's say, amount 1 minus amount 2, and let's run it and print. To print this, we can write 2diff print this one. You can see it's negative number, and that is totally fine because the amount 1 might have been smaller than amount 2. But it's interesting to see we can also get the differences between two numbers, right? And the minus sign or the difference operator is actually working. All right, so that is cool. So notice here I did not redeclare this variable. I could access this amount to from here, this location, right? So this is the whole power of the variables. The variable are the reusable component of programming building block, right? So you can access anywhere inside the scope of the file or program to access the data stored within the variable. Okay, that's cool. So now let's finish, or let's write other operators that are common. I want to do multiplication and division. Okay, okay, so to do that, let's copy this and we can replace 2diff by, let's say, we can close this, to mul. Okay, let me write 2 mul for the multiplication, and I can replace minus with minus trick sign and access this from here. Let's paste it. I know for sure this will work. Let's verify. Yeah, it is working. It's multiplying two big numbers. And similarly for division, what we can do is you can do 2 underscore div and amount 1 divided by amount 2, and you can call to div here variable, right? Okay, let's run it. Where did it go? Let's, okay, there it is. Look at that. So we are able to use the variables amount 1 and amount 2 all over the place to perform different operations, right? Different arithmetic operators. But in programming language, there are other type of operators as well. Okay, what are the other types of operators? Those are, let's say, let's begin another operator called logical operators. Okay, let's look at that in the next session.